A beloved children's character hellbent on murder, and a terrifying hit made for a measly $15,000. 2023 has been the year of the underdog in horror, as these box office surprises prove. Admittedly, an established horror franchise returning to theaters after a decade away can, in many cases, feel like a recipe for success. Evil Dead Rise certainly seemed like a movie many would have expected to perform well. However, let us not forget that this film was originally supposed to be released on HBO Max. Plus, while Army of Darkness gave us an entirely new setting and 2013's Evil Dead gave us an entirely new cast, this is the first in the series to do both in the same film. There was no guarantee audiences would turn up, but they did, and they turned up in droves to see director Lee Cronin's vision for the future of the classic series.
Mom? Mommy's with the maggots now.
Against a big city backdrop with no-holds-barred gore, Evil Dead Rise was met with open arms from both critics and audiences alike, propelling the movie to a wildly successful $24.5 million opening weekend, losing only to the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The film held extremely well in the coming weeks and pulled in a stellar $146.5 million worldwide. For comparison's sake, 2013's Evil Dead remake pulled in a very good $97.5 million worldwide against a similar $17 million budget. The fact that Cronin's film earned nearly $50 million more is amazing. Sure, there was a presumed level of success here, but this was well beyond anyone's most optimistic expectations. When the Pope's Exorcist trailer dropped, with Oscar winner Russell Crowe on board in the lead role, it almost seemed like it could have been included with the other fake movie trailers that played in the beginning of Tropic Thunder. But no, it was a very real Hollywood movie produced by Sony Pictures.
Your prayers are worthless here.
And for Sony, the rewards were equally real. Director Julius Avery's exorcism flick performed far better than anyone expected, and it even managed to top the flashier, more expensive Renfield on its opening weekend. The key thing here is that Sony didn't overspend on the film, as it carried a very reasonable $18 million budget in a genre where cheap and gritty has worked plenty of times over the years, most notably with The Exorcist. All told, Crowe's trip to the supernatural horror genre pulled in $20 million domestically, but also a far more impressive $54.7 million internationally, all for a grand total of $74.7 million as of this video. That's a rate of return any studio would be thrilled with, which is precisely why a sequel to The Pope's Exorcist is already in development. Major movie studios have tried many times to buy the kind of press that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey gained naturally last year. Director Reese Frake Waterfield capitalized on the fact that A.A. Milne's beloved literary creation recently entered the public domain by producing an ultra-cheap, down-and-dirty slasher film starring the honey-loving bear and his friend Piglet.
Well, tell me about it tomorrow.
When the first picture surfaced online, the internet went absolutely bonkers. Online chatter doesn't always equate to financial success, but in this case, Drake Waterfield and his financial partners found themselves on the right side of a big hit, even in the face of downright scathing reviews from critics. Curiosity from moviegoers rewarded the low-budget flick, which ended up making just shy of $5 million at the box office. Let's be clear, that's a tiny number that would represent a disaster for any studio movie, but this was never supposed to be anything more than direct-to-VOD schlock. Produced for less than $100,000, this movie made out incredibly well, especially because all of the attention the relative success garnered in the press only served to benefit the movie once it did arrive on VOD. A sequel is being rushed into production to capitalize on the success, because that's just the nature of the beast. Say what you will about the film itself, but it's pretty surprising that this, in a very odd way, turned out to be one of the little films that could in 2023. Impressive though it may be, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey had the hook of taking a beloved character from many people's childhoods and turning him into a slasher villain. That's going to turn some heads and gain some press. Director Kyle Edward Ball, on the other hand, had a mere $15,000 and an idea to work with in crafting his ultra-low-budget sensation, Skinamarink, which absolutely dominated the conversation in January when the film came out of nowhere to take the horror world by storm. With virtually no marketing money to speak of, Ball's deeply terrifying experimental film scared the hell out of tons of people and became a true word-of-mouth sensation. Again, we're talking about a movie that made just $2.1 million at the box office, which is, for most movies, not even a drop in the bucket. But against a budget that equates to a small percentage of change lost in the couch cushions for a major studio, what Ball was able to do is nothing short of remarkable. The amount of ink that was spilled after Skinamarink started filling theaters due to genuine online buzz was beyond impressive. That couple $1 million was only the beginning, as the movie also made its way to Shudder and did well in the streaming sphere. Moreover, Ball now has a career and will assuredly be getting a lot more money to make his next film, which will automatically have the eyes of the horror-loving world on it. This is the single most feel-good success story in cinema this year. Nobody saw it coming, and much like Kevin Smith's Clerks or Robert Rodriguez's El Mariachi, it enters the pantheon of low-budget films that prove to aspiring filmmakers around the world that a hit can be made with very little resources.